to fulfill my responsibility to enforce the laws of the United States.
Exercising history, exercise of religion. That is the person who represents the Christian tradition, the faith that everyone here professes to believe in, who is actually sharing with you the words of Jesus himself. The words of Jesus are actually represented in the book of Isaiah, chapter 10.
All right, we thank you for sharing your thoughts.
I thought we were here to protect religious liberty. I am a pastor of a Baptist church, and you are escorting me out for exercising my religious freedom. That doesn't make any sense. I think it's very hypocritical for this group of people to be wanting to protect religious freedom while you are escorting me out for doing that very work. And as a black man...
Well, we would say this. Thank you all and for your comments, and we're glad to hear them, but that's pretty close to what we refer to as the heckler's veto. The ability of one individual to prevent others in a proper forum to be able to express a hopefully coherent thought about a serious subject. I don't think there's anything in the Scripture, and I don't believe there's anything in my theology that says a secular nation state cannot have lawful laws to control immigration in its country. That's what we're talking about. Not immoral, not indecent, and not unkind to state what your laws are and then set about to enforce them, in my view. And I feel like that's my responsibility, and that's what I intend to do. It's great to be back in Boston, my third trip, the cradle of liberty. As some say, the hub of the universe, right here in Boston. Thank you for being here. I know many of you look a little hungover from the ball games. I made it to the 12th inning the other night, but that's as far as I could handle it, and it was an exciting game for sure. So I want to thank particularly the Boston Lawyers Chapter of the Federalist Society for inviting me here to be with you, especially Michael Sullivan, former United States Attorney and former Acting Director of ATF, Jordan Lawrence of ADF. Thank you, Jordan, and the work that your group does. So I've admired and appreciated the Federalist Society's mission from its beginning in 1982. I couldn't say I was present at its creation, but I was watching the United States Attorney appointed by Ronald Reagan in Alabama. I cheered the courage they showed in challenging the activist liberal orthodoxy in the judicial branch, and with not much expectation of change, frankly. We'd all sort of gotten beaten down in the 70s and 80s, it seemed. But I was wrong. I cannot name any other group over the last 35 years, and I've given thought to it, maybe 50 years, that's come close to the policy achievements of the Federalist Society in the areas that they're engaged in. It's been a tremendous, unbelievably successful activity. The jurisprudence of the neutral umpire, as Justice Roberts testified in our committee, is on the ascendancy, and activism and ideology in adjudications is on the defensive intellectually. It's a stunning reversal. And so thanks to the President Trump, there are two more Federalist Society members of the United States Supreme Court. I gotta tell you. Here, here. And flying up, we were discussing it. There are a number in the White House. And I got to tell you, right here with me, we have a number. Jesse Panuccio. Where's Jesse? There he is. Jesse's our acting Associate Attorney General, number 3 in the department. Harvard Law, Federalist Society. Sarah Flores, I don't know where Sarah, there's Sarah right here. Sarah was president of the Harvard Law Federalist Society when she was at Harvard. Rod Rosenstein, our Deputy Attorney General, was a Federalist Society member at Harvard during his time here. Gary Barnett, I mean, he's a Boston University guy. I was at Boston College. Which one did Doug Flutie play at? Oh, the other one? No, I thought you were at that good place. They beat Alabama. I still remember Doug Flutie. with the Hail Mary. Is that insensitive? Can I say Hail Mary in this group? Violating some establishment of religion, I guess. But it's an honor to be with you all on this historic Parker House. It's hosted figures like Thoreau, Emerson, Hawthorne, Longfellow, Oliver Wendell Holmes, John Kennedy, and it's where the Boston cream pie was established or invented. But perhaps more relevant to our discussion, it's where John Adams, it's always important to me, I mention it often, it's very significant, defended British soldiers in a jury trial before the American Revolution. Well, that ought to tell us something about how law develops. By chance, I was reading an old textbook, a college textbook on literature, and it was Burke's speech to the Parliament advocating reconciliation with the colonies and not war. And he said, at any rate, I understand. First, he said they were just following the law we taught them. And then he said, I understand they sell more copies of Blackstone's commentaries in the colonies than the mother country. That's just how law develops over centuries. And we're heirs to that we are heirs to such a system that's protected our safety, prosperity, and liberty.
All right, so you've been watching the Attorney General of the United States, Jeff Sessions, making some remarks at a chapter of the Federalist Society in Boston. We were under the impression that the AG was perhaps going to mention the horrific massacre that took place in Pittsburgh over the weekend at the Tree of Life Synagogue, where 11 Americans were killed, massacred by a man who is now in police custody, who's expected to be arraigned later today, but he did not make those comments. Instead, what we saw were a couple of protests from two members of the clergy, one member of the clergy who stood up and challenged the Attorney General on, I guess, a number of issues, including the immigration policy that his Justice Department has put forth. The member of the clergy, who apparently I think was a Methodist, quoted from the New Testament, Matthew chapter 25, verse 35, "For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. For I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in." Another member of the clergy jumped up to also protest some of those policies. The Attorney General, and keeping the Attorney General honest, he then went on to say that this is something that he calls the heckle, I guess the heckle veto, where people can heckle officials, cabinet officials, or otherwise elected officials if they disagree with them. He mentioned something about the secular laws of the United States somehow being in disconcert with the two members of the clergy who were there protesting. I'll just remind the Attorney General that back in June of this year, he used Romans, the chapter in the Bible, Romans 13, to lobby and to argue for his harsh immigration policy. I believe Romans 13 is about obeying the laws of government. The Attorney General then saw fit to use the Bible in that instance, but when two members of the clergy challenged him, in this instance, they became members of the veto hecklers, or whatever it was that he called them. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. A lot more news. Stick around.